Welcome back to the Storm Cellar. It is another game day edition, which has fared pretty well for the Hurricanes, I might add. Whenever we record on a Saturday right before a game or even during a game, tends to work out in our favor. Cross my fingers that continues. Ray, how you feeling about today's game, sir?
Not only does it work out in our failure, some of our predictions on the program come true all all at once. We've been every now and again, we call players out or whatever, and things turn into our favor where they respond for us on ice, like they were listening to a live recording of this and saying, "Okay, you guys calling me out? Here we go.
I'm
This is what
calling
we do."
everybody out for the next 7 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. All of you, we're calling you all out. No, it's great up here in Calgary when it's not storming immediately, dropping 4 or 5 inches of snow in about an hour and a half, and then
Oof.
all melting by the end of the day. This is the craziness.
Oh, that's when like the ground gets nasty and everything is
Oh,
brown and gray.
it
All of our
was,
Raleigh friends, like, you don't see as much of this, but snow is beautiful the first like couple of days,
yeah,
and then like your winter, it's just like a brown and gray haze.
just crazy. It's been just crazy, but we're doing well. And the Canes, are they are they stumbling to the regular season finish line, or are they starting to turn things around? What do we think here?
We've talked for the last few weeks, and we kind of did the gassed or not the word we
Indifferent.
use, indifferent. Thank you. And I feel it's a little. I was saying it was kind of both, and I'm starting to think maybe they were just kind of gassed. I mean, there's been a few teams this year that have really played up to that level. Florida, Colorado. You could probably throw the Maple Leafs in the mix for a good chunk of that.
Yeah,
And I just wonder if it's just been, okay, they're just trying to regroup and get through games at this point healthy, which is
yeah,
not working if that's the strategy. But
yeah. No,
but we kind of hope that uh, they looked better against even in an Avs game that I'd love to forget.
oh,
I mean, at least they were able to put up points, right? I mean, the defense, I think, has holes in it. I think that's become more apparent since the break.
yeah,
And then against the Coyotes, and then against the Winnipeg, we're seeing more of the same. But at least the 5-on-5, 4-on-4 offense is going, because the power play is an abysmal, I think, 2 for 25 now,
yeah,
including that 4-on-3. Um, that that cost the Predators, probably, if we're being honest, in last year's first round series with the Canes.
mm-hmm.
If the Hurricanes can't figure out the power play, that is maybe my biggest concern at the moment.
Yeah, that is certainly that the power play. We've got tons of talent and scoring ability, and right now it like I said, the opposition is using our own penalty kill strategy against us to great effect, and we can't seem to get in. We saw in the game against the Jets, of course, and Jarvis game winner. Now, this wasn't a power play goal, but the willingness to get to the front of the net. And once they're at the front of the net and causing causing some chaos in front, they're seeing the results. There are guys going to the front of the net, paying the price, and it's a heavy price to pay. I can't pretend that it's a lot of fun to be in that spot, getting roughed up pretty vigorously from all corners, and still being able to, get a stick on the puck. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like the
and I think
shot
Seth
comes through.
Jarvis kind of proved that. I mean, it wasn't a
Yeah,
power play goal, but he goes to the front of the net. He get pushed, he gets pushed into the goaltender, but the puck's wide open and he nets one, right? I mean, that's just good, solid, fundamental get to the front of the net hockey. And
yeah.
I think our power play has just become predictable. I think maybe you switch up. I think you rotate all three guys down low,
Hmm.
put them in a new position, get them, a little uncomfortable intentionally, and
Yeah.
see what happens. So,
Yeah, if they're moving and moving the puck, right? When they start standing still, it just makes everything easier to defend. And if they're
it
moving the
does.
puck and moving players, you don't want to call it like a Harlem Globetrotter thing, but if everyone's moving and you're making good, crisp passes, you're going to open up that 2-on-1 that you're always looking for to create the really stellar opportunities. If they're moving, they can do that. Otherwise, it's been difficult. But yeah.
100%. A little breaking news. This was announced maybe 20 minutes ago or so, Ray, at this point, maybe a little more. Tonight's goalie for the Hurricanes, the coach Rod Brindamore, is going to be one Peter Kochetkov.
And
Peter, I'm sorry if that is a mispronunciation. I promise I will learn your name.
Kochetkov.
Kochetkov.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
that's how it is. Yes. And we do apologize. We do care about
we do
you.
try.
We and we
It's not that I'm not trying. I'm just really bad with English.
yeah, and we certainly care about rookie goaltenders jumping into the fray in the home stretch.
We love our baby goalie.
And he comes with a pretty damn good resume. 13-1-1 in the AHL, just slightly over 2 goals for the goals against average, just slightly over, and respectable. He's about 913, 915 save percentage. Like, that's all right. That's all right in the AHL, and certainly the Wolves know how good he is and how good he can be. And now it's our turn, and especially important since this is a back-to-back weekend, and we got some really big games coming up that Ronta is going to need to be fresh for. You know what I mean? Because
Absolutely.
taking a lot of shots from the Devils, who, you know what, have this way against the Canes. The Devils is not a cakewalk. The On the standings, you'd think it should be, but these two get on the ice, and there's usually a little bit of fireworks, and we've seen that so far this season. So taking on the
100%.
Devils, not it's a good start. It's a good decent test. It's
I
not
think
like
if you're
throwing
looking,
him against the Coyotes, right? I mean that.
yeah, I think that could have gone wrong.
Yeah.
I think the Isles are not as good as the Devils, but I think starting him today and giving Ronta 2 starts in a row, Isles and then Rangers, is the right idea to try and get him into a groove, just in case Anderson's next MRI doesn't come back well, right? You got to
Oh,
start thinking about what ifs, and I don't want to go too far into that just yet, Ray. At Archer for Canes we were hoping to have her on the show today. She has been road tripping since the Colorado game,
oh
so
yes,
she's going to every remaining game. So she was in
that's
Denver, she was in
amazing.
Arizona, she's now in New York City for the next 3. We cannot wait to talk to her about her trip, because I think that'll be some really cool, very recent, content about what's going on. Weren't able to schedule it because we're recording here. The game starts in just over an hour, so she's obviously getting to the game and getting
Yeah,
into the groove. The good news is we have a lot of great questions from the listeners that we're going to jump into. But I have to share something with you, Ray.
I know
Uh,
this is kind of cool.
I've posted before, like I traditionally have collected like sticks, pucks, things like that, because cost, right? I mean, you
Right.
know, everybody's got your disposable income is varies, but everybody's got a limit. So sticks and things relatively cheap. I was able to secure what to me is a really cool piece of Kane's history about a player that many of you, including old timers, even when I asked Ray was honest, like, I'm like, the name kind of rings a bell, but I don't know why. And honestly, it's because this person wasn't a great Canes player, but in my mind, has some importance to the team. I was able to acquire a game worn for the 2011-2012 season, from set number 2, Derek Joslin game worn jersey. Has the Vasicek patch,
See,
on the
like,
front, number 27. What's important to us, I think, is we've always said hockey. We used to say hockey's for everyone. Now I prefer to say hockey should be for everyone because we know there's
Yeah,
work to do. I think we've had more women on the show as guests than men.
I
We've
think
had people
so.
of color. We've had people who are LGBTQ. Um,
Yeah,
I mean that's what we're into, right?
that's what we're
And
about.
and Derek is one of the African American players who have played for the Hurricanes. He was featured in a Black History Player Profile back when he was with the Canes. So I think for me, this one is kind of cool for me. This is definitely going up on the wall in a frame. For old schoolers or newer folks who have not heard of Derek, basically we acquired him from the Sharks, I believe it was.
Yeah.
He played out the rest of the season. We signed him to a 2-year deal. Very quickly fell down the depth chart down to like the seventh or eighth D man at
Hmm.
best. They actually moved him to wing for a while. So another kind of special thing to me about this jersey is he wore this jersey as a defenseman while playing wing for the Hurricanes, which is kind of cool. He ended up getting bought out. So like I said, this is not somebody who is a make it or break it Hurricane. But for me, this is kind of a cool piece of Canes history because of what it potentially represents as hockey moves forward. And we strive to make hockey for everyone. So I am super psyched. It's a little snug on me. I will post some pictures of it, but I do need to shed some lbs for it. But just I don't know. For me, I'm super psyched to have it in my collection.
It's it's a fantastic acquisition, and the two things that you brought up, the one that jumped out at me immediately, because when I saw it for the first time, I saw the picture of the front. You don't actually know whose jersey it is, right? So you just see the front,
Yep,
and immediately the patch for Vasicek was that brought that brought memories to me. I loved Wasacek, and he was just, I don't know. It's losing him. It was tough. So seeing
it
that
was.
that black number 60, the black little patch number 63, like that was like, oh my god, like
He reminds
that's
me a lot for
fantastic.
for newer folks. He was a forward, but he reminded me in attitude and everything. He reminded me a lot of like Dougie Hamilton. Reminds me of Joe.
Yeah,
We called him Big Joe. And unfortunately, he was killed in a plane crash
yeah,
uh, in 2011. He played 7 years for the Canes. He also played for the Islanders, who we'll see in a couple or tomorrow. Played for the Preds. Very cool, super down to earth kind of guy. Met him a couple times. Just another wonderful human being, right? Put up some awesome numbers with the Canes in most of his years. Really missed having that guy around. He was with the Hurricanes for uh, it's off and on because the lockout year he went back to Europe, and then in 2001 he split time between Cincinnati of the IHL and the NHL. But
wow,
he ended up playing,
yeah,
I think it was like 7 seasons with the Canes. So yeah, the Joe Wasacek patch was so I did some IT work for this guy, and we were talking jerseys. I knew he was a jersey collector, and he said, I can send you money, or I got something you might like. And I was like, I'll take the jersey. As soon as I saw the patch, I didn't even care who the player was as much,
yeah,
because I was like, oh, like the name rings a bell, but I don't really remember. And I had to do a little research. And once I started researching, I'm like, oh, like this is really something special. So I'm
yeah.
very excited to get this up. I've got photos that match the jersey, puck marks and things, so you can tell. I think the photos I have are from a game against Toronto that
Okay,
have him in it. So I'll probably print out one of those, put it, in a frame, in the shadow box with it. But
frame it up
very
great.
excited to
That's a
have this.
Yeah,
As I've mentioned, I think on the show before, my master's is in history, and so anything I can do to help bring about, keeping this history alive for current and future Caniacs, I think is cool. So yeah, I'll throw some pics up for sure. But I'm really excited to have. Just like I was super psyched when I got my Shady 80 stick, game use stick.
yes,
This
yes.
Jocelyn is a really cool, somewhat unique piece of history for the Canes. So
It
I'm really really excited to
absolutely
have it.
is. And that was the other part that caught me off guard, because I I like to think of myself as a Caniac who loves this team so much that there's really not a name that you could throw out there that I wouldn't know or recognize. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like you said, it was like, yeah, that name sounds familiar, but I just can't draw where it's coming from.
Yep.
And I like to be a little bit tighter with the knowledge there and say, oh yes, I remember him, blah blah blah. Give you kind of a breakdown. And then, hearing the history that you shared with him. And it was fantastic. It's an excellent pickup all around.
And even for the most diehard among us, I mean, people who know everybody, 2011, 12 is kind
Kind of
of
a
in the decline,
forgettable
right? Like
year.
it's kind of in the start of the rough patch there.
It was.
So for people who only lasted a season, I think we do a pretty good job of remembering folks. But for somebody who quickly, unfortunately, kind of slid down the depth chart, then got moved to wing, was able to get back in the game, which is I think a cool thing in and of itself, right?
That I
And let's put
that's
him somewhere else, see if he does better, and he does. Like I think that's cool.
and you
But
know what? That's I think when you mentioned that in the show, it was like that's where I recognize him
right,
because it was that unique
that's memorable.
position
Oh,
move.
nobody
Yeah.
does that.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often at all. So what a great thing. What we have been wanting to do and asking for many, many, many episodes is that our great listeners of the podcast, uh, if they ever wanted to, if they ever want to be part of the show, we can't, have you into the storm cellar with us. If you want to be part of the show, there's a way you can do it, and that's send us questions. And if you're a Caniac, a brand new one, you may not have heard this name, but he was a name that Whalers fans and Hurricanes fans know very, very well. Chuck Caton. He was the voice of the Whalers, the voice of the Hurricanes.
Chuck and the
Uh,
letter K.
Chuck and the letter K. He is a Hall of Famer, and he is just absolutely fantastic. I love the way he called games, but every game that he had, the second period was called Caton's Corner, and he encouraged people to do kind of what we did. If you have any questions, you want to ask about the game or whatever, uh, give me a shout. We'll take a look at the questions, and then maybe on a Caton's Corner in the future, you'll get your question read. And he'd answer it. And it was always great, always informative. And this is our means of paying homage to uh, seriously one of the greatest voices in broadcasting. And
Right. Any league, any sport, not just Canes,
exactly,
but
just
like Ray said, he's a
amazing.
Hall of Famer and a super nice individual.
Yeah.
You can find his radio call on YouTube when the Hurricanes won the cup,
Oh
and
my
his
God, that gives
call
me chills.
is just one of those things. As soon as you hear it, you know what's going to happen. It's one of my favorite memories.
It was so great that he was able to call that one. And I didn't get a chance to hear it until afterward. I had friends send me the clips of his call of the game because I'm in north of Edmonton, and we're getting the hockey broadcasts from Canadian broadcasters, right? So I didn't get to hear his voice until after, and it was like they both have a special place, obviously, because they win it. But Chuck's call of it was find it, listen to it, and enjoy, Caniacs and jerks alike. Absolutely. So let's pay
I'll toss
homage
up a
to him.
link for sure. Um,
Awesome.
I tell you, I'll go through and read questions, and then you can go first, or you can defer to me, and
Sure.
we're just gonna spend the next 30 or 40 minutes answering questions, and they're good questions too.
Awesome.
There was only one softball given, and that's because I practically begged for it. Uh,
This is gonna be fun. And there's some
Dan,
really great ones.
let's see, Daniel Herrera, maybe. Sorry, Daniel, I'm not good with names. We've said that already, but who would your top 6 defensemen be for game 1?
Oy, I don't mind answering this, but I have to put a little kind of spin on it in saying I think the selection that I have would depend on who we are ending up playing
Let,
in certain positions.
sure,
So,
and let's for the sake of the question, let's assume everybody's healthy.
okay, if everyone's healthy, um, see, and again, part of it is to me is it depends on who they're playing to, who would be in my top six. But obviously, um, my starting pair is of course Slavin and TDA. And TDA not because he is I think Slavin is paired with him because he has to be paired with him. TDA again, offensive minded and always looking and stuff like that. His defense, we've said it over and over again, not terribly great. If there was ever a defenseman who might be moved up to a wing, like we talked about earlier,
Right?
he would be one of the ones I might do because defensively he really struggles, and that's why you need an anchor and one of the best defenders in the league in Slavin paired with him. So I like those. Those are my top two. Um, of course, the second pairing, which has really been the pairing that has stayed the same the whole season long, and that is Pesci and Shea together. I think they work out very well too, and both of them have the like they're kind of a conglomeration of the offense and defense. They have a little bit in each. Pesci makes some great pinches just like Shea does. And he's got a great shot. Pesci's overtime goal, that one, the top cheese there. Holy cow, that was a
As a
beautiful
beaut.
shot, right? It was a beauty. It was just silky mitts there. So I think, and they're all really reasonable defensively. Here's where things get really tough. Okay, really tough. If if we are taking if we are taking on, say, Pittsburgh, to me, it is it is um it's Bear and it's Ian Cole. That's my pairing there. If it's the Pens.
Hmm.
If it's the Bruins, I would go Cole and Chadfield. I would bring him up and put him on. They are a little bit tougher, a little bit hard nose. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
and this is not uh, to besmirch Smith, who is great, or Bear, anyone who's that interchangeable. It's just what we need in the right circumstance. Those would be my pairings. Those are my six. Again, we all know it. Slave and TDA, Shea and Pesci, and then if we're playing the Pens, Cole and Bear. If we're playing the Bruins, it's Cole and Chadfield.
Hard to argue, right? Um, I love the fact. So you and I have not discussed these questions ahead of time. I just want
No,
to be clear.
no.
So whatever we say, you're getting live.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you mixed in Chatfield because I did too.
Oh, wow. Great minds think alike.
But very differently. Um,
Oh,
and I'll give you the quick rundown, and then I'll give you a fuller answer. If we don't, if Rod's like not going to bring up Chatfield, I would go Slavin and Bear. I trust Ethan more in the defensive zone if he's healthy than I do TDA. Pesci, Shea, I think is an obvious one. And then I would go Cole and TDA as the third pair. And I would be
ooh.
very tempted to double shift the top 4 depending on the opponent. Right. So I would play TDA on the power play, I would play he and Cole limited minutes in all other situations. If
Wow.
Rod is open to Chatfield, I would seriously consider Slavin Chatfield to start. Chatfield's young. He doesn't have quote unquote as much NHL experience as these other guys, but I think he has shown during his time with the team and in the AHL, he makes good decisions. And if Slavin has somebody who can make good decisions for him and he's not having to worry about covering for somebody, he's that much better. And I think if you give him Chatfield, who is not going to be as aggressive potentially as Bear or TDA, but knows when to chip in, Slavin can just worry about locking down, the opponent's top line. Then you stick with, Pesci and Shea, and then your third pair becomes Cole and Bear or Cole and TDA. And I think that's almost a coin flip at this point. Um, Before the break, I would have taken Bear over TDA from a defensive standpoint.
Yeah.
But he hasn't looked as good since COVID. I don't know if he's dealing with long-term COVID or if it's, he's had nagging injuries or what.
He is
But
struggling.
TDA is as well. The whole defense is kind of struggling, but
No question.
we both, I think, agree on 4 out of the 6, right? And then it comes down to some combination of Bear, TDA, and Chatfield over Smith, which I think is telling. I think Smith, he brings a physicality that you might need in the playoffs, but he's
Yeah.
also a turtle. Not like that he's shying away from people. I just mean he's slow, right?
Yeah.
That's the one knock on him. I think he's played really well. He certainly doesn't mind hitting people. He has obviously demonstrated that he is willing to go toe to toe with
100%.
guys like Tom Wilson. But I think in the playoffs, if we are going to win the games in the style that we want to win them, it's going to be about puck movement.
No question. And again, we are not. It's weird singling out or saying that they're weaker than or whatever. It's just we're looking for optimal and certain positions. I have to say, that's a very hot take. That's a bold take to think about moving Chadfield right out of the AHL right up to the front line with Slavin. But I understand the reasoning that you're saying there too. You
I
know
mean,
what I
that's
mean?
that's the kind of thing that gets you. You're either a hero or the villain when you make that
Yeah.
move, right? So I
Yeah, for me, just usually that top line pairing is paired up with your top line of forwards more often than not in throughout a game. It doesn't always happen, but more often than not. And TDA's offensive prowess is too much to ignore on a team that has been struggling to score. Our top 2 lines, they've been having difficulty. Third line is scoring like crazy. And thank
that line's
you,
a beast.
Jordan Stahl. Like they've been the consistent anchor to this team. Your third line that you don't hear very often or see, but as far as consistency goes, they're the line you can always count on. So if we can get TDA with and to help spark some of the offense for those top 2 lines, that's where we need them. That's a great question and a very difficult one
Uh,
because we have to then try to put ourselves in the position of Coach Coach Rod, who some have criticized for tinkering with the lines too much. But now you see even just a tiny bit of the reasoning and decisions that you have to make. So that's freaking great. What a great
and
question that was.
a nice segue. Caniac Zach from at Pours for Scores. Shout out to those folks raising money for charity at Pours #4 Scores on Twitter. If you're RBA, what will your lines be? Play game 1 of
Okay.
the playoffs. So now we're talking forwards. I mean,
Yeah, now
it's the natural question, right?
it 100% is, and you and I actually had this discussion. And so because I've already thrown my lines at you, and I'm quickly trying to draw back uh to the lines that I had where I'm scrambling to find this. So talk amongst yourselves. And
Well, I
because
can get us started while you're looking.
yeah,
Um,
sure.
uh, Top line to me, I
Here we go.
think you got to have 2086, right? That's a classic number. You got to have Aho in Tavo, and I think you leave Jarvis up there. Jarvis, I think fits almost as well as Svechnikov does on that first line, but I think that gives Fetch because he's a little more developed at this point. By moving him to the second line, you don't really diminish your first line, but you add to the second line. So then you got Svech, Trocheck, and Natchez on that second line, right?
Yeah.
Third line, don't mess with it.
No.
Just leave it be. Like if anybody changes up the third line, like you're nuts. It's been the most consistent best line for months.
No question.
Fourth line, this is where things get iffy,
Crazy.
and I'm still kind of mulling it over a little bit. I would like to see Derek back in the in the offense a little more. I think Tommy can't talk today. Domi
Yeah.
has shown you that he can be a solid guy, but I don't feel obligated to play him just for that. He hasn't shown me that he is definitely ahead of anybody else on that fourth line. And so that's where that fourth line, I got to think about that some. So if you have your top three
I
lines,
do.
I'm going to think a little bit about how that fourth line lines up.
I do, and I'm gonna power through everything because it was I can't remember which game we were chatting through where I said, okay, this has gotta be done. I can't remember which game it was. But here it is. My top lines, uh, and I do it a little bit different than you. Um, we need to get SAT together again. uh, when Svetch and Aho and Turbo were all on the same line, the production was up for everyone. I mean, they were just great. And Turbo and Aho are such great passers. They seem to get the puck into Svetch's wheelhouse and he was able to capitalize. You know what I mean? And because Svetch is so dangerous, it took some of the heat off of Turbo and Aho because everyone's looking over there for the shots, and suddenly now Aho and Turbo are getting the real estate that they need to work magic and great passing between them. So everyone flourished for me. So to me, that SAT line, it feels a little bit like putting all your eggs into one basket, and I understand that that can be dangerous, but that's a very dangerous line.
Very,
And it's a very dangerous line, and it would be quick, and it's I worth looking at. So Spetch, oh, Turbo, that's my top line. Second line is Jarvis and Natchez, centered by Trocheck. But Natchez is one that I would be willing to move. But those those three together, I think, would be great. And again, this is Jarvis and Trocheck. They find themselves at the front of the net a lot. You know what I mean? They're
mm-hmm.
always looking for whatever. Jarvis has got a great shot. Natchez, if he's got a great shot too. They all have this really high ceiling for scoring. You know what I mean? Like they have the ability to put the puck in the net. This is a good line that would be quick. And like I said, Jarvis doesn't mind mucking it up and getting physical and going to the front of the net. And that might be enough to give Natchez some space.
I
You know
could
what I
see
mean?
that line drawing penalties with
Yes.
Trocheck and Jarvis being willing to mix it up a little bit if they're
Yeah,
smart.
they could draw penalties and stuff. So I like that line, but let me for the record say that your idea of leaving Jarvis on the top line, I am totally cool with. Totally, absolutely cool with. Jarvis on the top line has been great.
Yeah,
Like
and
really good.
on it, Jarvis over Spetz on the top line for me is like a 60-40 kind of decision.
Yeah.
I think Jarvis is Svechnikov in a couple of years, maybe, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think you're dramatically changing up the style of play for either line. Um, Svechnikov and Trocheck are a little penalty heavy, and I
Yeah.
think maybe keeping those two apart's not
Instead
a
of
bad idea.
instead of drawing the penalties, they are
Yeah,
like
then the line maybe
taking them.
becomes more likely to take.
Yeah, 100%. So, but yeah, again, e- having those two switched, eh, I would have no trouble with. I wouldn't fight with. And we've already said it. Doesn't
Yeah,
need to be said again.
Niederreiter stall fast is not going anywhere.
That's not going anywhere. Leave it. They have an amazing connection. Uh, so that's fantastic. For me, KK on the fourth line as the center. I have Domi with him. I've seen them play together. They've got something brewing there.
I think
And
so.
and they've got something brewing there. And for me, this this is the most difficult now. This is the most difficult
You're
because
so you're stuck where I'm stuck. I know what you're thinking, and you're stuck where I'm
yeah,
stuck.
I I'm trying to decide in which case, first of all, Martinook, Lawrence, and Stepan.
For me, it's a
Those are the
two-way race. If I'm being honest, it's
yeah.
it's it's Lawrence or Stepan. Love Marty. Marty's a team guy. Marty's an energy guy. Uh, Marty has not put any real points on the board in months.
He's struggled, and Stepan has this. He's got so much experience, and in fact, if I put him on the line, he's actually going to center KK and Domi. That's how I would. That's how I would have it. Um, this is so hard. If I if you're putting a gun to me and I'm saying who do I want or uh you know what? I think I could do it. I can do it two ways again, and this depending on the team that we're playing in the first round. If it's the Pens, I'm going step on centering Domi and KK. If it's the Bruins, I'm going KK centering Domi and Martin.
Right.
And he's
I
just got the energy and leadership. This is an assistant captain, and he has that leadership. And if anything, you want him down there at the starting of the game to get Mr. Svechnikov fired up. So at the very least, that's what he's doing. But he's that energy guy that
right.
can really get things fired up. And
I,
that's what I love about him. Love
I would
about
leave
Martin.
KK at center. I think he feels more comfortable there than on the wing.
Yeah.
And I would put probably Domi on his left, and I'd probably if I have to make the call, I'm putting Derek Stepan on his right, just because he's scoring it, a little better clip, not a lot. Um, he has fewer penalty minutes, as I recall, although neither of them is up there. Um,
Br-
but that's a
Br-
tough one.
it is a tough one. And here, Brad, I'm going to throw a curveball at you, and we're thanking the our listeners who are asking questions about lines because now it's got me on the go. Would you drop one of the defenders to have two of those fourth line guys available?
I don't know
Because
that
you
I would.
in the very rare cases, this happens sometimes, right? Whether it's through injury or whatever, where teams will roll less defenders or more defenders than forwards, right? Would you do any of that,
And,
Brad?
and
Would you add a defender to the group and drop one of your forwards?
so So the first time I thought you asked, would I drop a defender for a forward? And I would say no for the reason you gave. But if I misunderstood the question, would I roll 7 defensemen if one of them is Jalen Chatfield?
You'd roll them.
I would be willing to do that, but not if the 7th one is Smith.
Wow. Very particular.
And it all comes down, and some of this is the eye test, right?
Yeah.
Chatfield makes good decisions.
Yeah.
And part of the success the Hurricanes have had this year has been getting the right people in the right position to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And if you're in position, then you can cover things defensively without having to overtax and overskate and wear yourself out, right? So I wouldn't do it for Smith, but if they rolled Chatfield into there as one of the 7, then I think you can be, then you can maybe roll in Bear or Tony as an extra forward whenever you need to, knowing that you have somebody else who is sound defensively uh,
Right.
on the cover up. That's a great question. I also, going back to the Chatfield thing, if they brought up Nazen or Drury to put on the 4th line, I would have
Yeah.
no problem with that either. Because
There you go.
the 4th line, getting goals is not their primary focus.
No.
But when they're only playing,
If
a few
if
minutes a night, like you need some kind of spark from that line. And young guys don't
valuable
have the
minutes.
experience, but young guys, I think, like Drury, have the desire to come up here and say, I belong at this level next year. You know what I mean? I think that would be something that I would at least be willing to entertain. And the reality is that, at 7 minutes a night or 8 minutes a night, whatever it's going to be, like, they're probably not going to do anything worse than what's already being done, which is not necessarily saying it's
Yeah.
bad, but just, if you get the status quo out of those guys, you haven't really hurt anything.
I guess the success of any team, the importance of the 4th line is just so huge. And people may be saying, well, Raymond, what are you talking about? The 4th line isn't really, they don't play all that much. The and that in if you want lengthy success, you need your 4th line to be able to consume some of the minutes. You cannot always be changing from rolling 4 lines to just rolling 3. It wears everyone out. And if your 4th line can get that injection of fire in the team and getting them fired up and playing hard, if if they don't if they don't have if the 4th line plays like the 3rd line or 2nd line all the time, that's the energy that they bring, then Rod doesn't have to adjust anything. He can just keep rolling 4. And as long as you're rolling 4, you're in great shape.
And that's huge in the playoffs.
It is.
The next one's kind of a double. I'm going to combine 2 questions.
Okay.
So Keniak Karen, hi Karen. She
Hey.
says, when are they going to resign Nino Niederreiter?
Okay.
My initial response was, well, not until the off season, because that's just how they roll.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then friend of the show, Nathan, who is at Timber Guy, something I forget. Sorry, Nathan. If you can only re-sign one this offseason, who is more important, Trocheck or Niederreiter? We could spend an
Oh.
hour on this, so I'm going to say if you have to cut to the chase and give like a short 2 sentences on what you're going to do you re-sign Niederreiter or Trocheck, assuming it's one or the other?
If it has to be one or the other, see,
There's no right answer.
there is no right answer. Trocheck is someone, again, so great in the face-off circle, and I put a lot of weight on the importance of puck control. And puck control starts at the face-off. And if you can keep winning the majority of the face-offs, you have that puck control and puck possession, you're always in a better spot. So by a whisker, it would be Trocheck. However, however, I know the risk that I'm doing there because we've just spent 10 minutes at minimum saying how the third line with Nino Niederreiter, who's a big part of it on that line, has been the most consistent line. And to lose him would be it would be very difficult. He's quick and he doesn't mind going to the front of the net too. He's pesty,
Yeah,
pesky.
I'll take it.
He's just great. I love Nino. And it frustrates me when he's not when he gets into a scoring slump. It's you struggle. Oh man, Nino, we need something from you because dude, you're so close, right? And uh this is that those are terrible
I
difficulties.
think that was the first question we got, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I
Wow,
mean,
such a good
so
one.
Trocheck has a few more games played, a couple more points, but they're basically together. 48 points versus 42. Uh, Trocheck has doubled the penalty minutes is a big one, but 0.62 points per game for Trocheck, 0.59 for Niederreiter. They're right there. I had hypothesized earlier, could you re-sign them both and do something about Jordan Stahl, which of course then Jordan Stahl goes on a tear. And now, like, okay, now I look foolish. If I have to keep one, I think I go for Niederreiter. But I'm with you. Like, if I'm Don Waddell, you could almost coin flip and determine which one. My basis really comes down to Nino's a little younger. That line is playing lights out. If we can get even another year out of that same line with that, you know, great. Trocheck's a natural center. Nino plays on the wing, and we have depth centers
We do.
between the NHL and the AHL. Are they Vincent Trochecks? Not exactly. I mean, even if the prediction is maybe that KK slides up into that number 2 center role,
Yeah, not exactly, but
he's
not
not
yet.
a Trocheck replacement, but
Not
that's not
yet.
necessarily a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
He's not the agitator Trocheck is. He doesn't quite throw the body the way Trocheck seems to. So if I'm being forced to make a choice, I would go Niederreiter by the slimmest of margins, mostly because of the other assets that the team has, not so much about either of the players or their play, how well they're playing or their play style, but just, Niederreiter's just one of those guys who just seems to kind of make the engine go, but so is Trojan. I mean,
Yeah.
it was so bad. I said, Nathan, I was like, thanks for the softball. And so the follow-up question from Nathan was this: what is the best candy and why is it Reese's eggs? To which I responded, you can buy a 6-ounce Reese's egg, which is like the size of like a kid football. And
Yeah.
that is why it's the best candy.
Uh, you know what? For me, it's always been the Coke bottle gummies.
Oh, a
The
gummy guy.
gummies the gummies that take. Yeah, yes, I am. And the Coke bottle gummies are just they're lights out. That's my favorite candy. Although there's a lot of great candy. I didn't get this big by accident. I ate a lot of candy. So we'll just say that. Um, I have to very quickly circle back to Nino Trocheck question.
Sure.
Here's another one. I'm going to complicate matters slightly. Who is going to be more difficult to sign, Trocheck or Niederreiter? And what I'm saying is, who is going to be able to demand more money and what kind of term we're looking at? Who's going to cost more? And
I think it's Trocheck. Mostly because being a small market team, the guys who have visibility are the guys who I think tend to get paid more. And Niederreiter's kind of a hidden gem, right?
he
Here in
is.
Carolina. Everybody in the league at this point, I think, knows who Vincent Trocheck is. They should know who Nino is, but maybe not. I think because he's probably on his last big deal, he's going to
Mhm.
want more term or more dollars. I think Trocheck is going to be the more difficult of the two signings. I think Nino fits in well here. I think he's not quite as big of a name. Um, I think you can get that deal done, you know, a little easier, maybe a little cheaper. But that's
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a
Without
tough
looking anything up
question.
off the cuff, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and it's who's to say what the agents will be saying. I think you make a point. Trocheck being a little further along, I don't want to say you want your career-ending money. You know what I mean? Like the contract that you're going out on to make as much money as you can to secure your future in life for yourself and your family, right? Like
Yeah,
that's the
and they're
type of
both
thing.
UFAs, so it's
Uh,
not like you even have control over Nino. I mean, they're both UFAs, so
yeah, that's going to be tough. That's gonna be tough. But there you go.
there we go.
We've muddled that up just
Um,
nicely. Tough
Speaking
question.
of contracts, Eric, who's been on the show with us, hey Eric,
Hey,
could you see the Hurricanes try to lock up Domi for a long term deal? Um, I don't know that they need to. I guess would be. I mean, I don't think he right now is bringing us anything that we don't already have. If he can return to his form that he had 4 seasons ago, maybe you would, maybe then, then we're talking, hey, that's real value add. But if he plays in the playoffs the way he's played for so far, I think he's serviceable but replaceable.
here's here's an interesting thing. And during the broadcast 2 nights ago, I think um, it was the focus was on Max Domi, and they were spending a lot of time talking to him in between periods. They did a little bit of feature with him, a little chat. And one of the things that he said right off the bat was, not only how much he loved it here, but how much he loved playing for Rod Brindamore. And to me, there's times when you see, responses for interviews and stuff like that as, well, what do you expect them to say if they want play time and stuff like that? Of course, they're going to say they love it where they're playing and whatnot. But there was a tone that he had that really uh, struck through to me. And I think he might not be as difficult to sign as we think. And I think, when we're talking for terms and stuff, a lot of people thinking long term. To me, long term are those 8-year contracts. Those make me very nervous. 8-year
Yeah, I
contracts.
always
I'll
think
say
of
that
long
right
as
back.
being like, say, 5 or more.
Yeah,
But that would make
exactly.
me nervous with a guy like Domi, unless it's just super cheap.
Yeah, exactly. I would love to see him signed on for give him 2 years. Give him 2 years. Give him fair money to show that he's appreciated. And then, if in the eventuality that we lose Trocheck or Niederreiter or both, which is entirely possible,
Oh man,
we see what Domi
Ray's
can
stirring the pot.
do. I am, and it's just it's got to be, if we got to face facts, right? UFAs, they may love it here.
Mhm.
We show them our love. Sometimes money talks, and there are other teams that see who Trocheck and Niederreiter. I mean, like you pointed out, he's like a diamond in the rough, and maybe not a lot of people saw him. You can damn well bet that every team and scout has and GM has looked at the UFA lineup there and said, he'd
Yeah,
fit in here real nice.
even if the coaches and GMs maybe they're not at the forefront, the analytics guys behind the scenes know
Yeah.
every name.
So I think Domi would be a good sign for 2 years. Give him good money, and let's see what he can do. In this environment, in a place that he says he loves playing for, a guy who loves his coach, thinks he's the best coach he's ever had. That's what that his words. Rod's been the best coach I've ever had, and he gets it, and that type of trust and love for a coach is what makes players play harder for your guy. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And that is just so important. And if they love where they're playing and they are doing everything they can because that's what their coach demands, you're going to see good things out of them. So I'd sign them to 2. I'd sign them to 2.
A new follower to at least on Twitter, uh, Gene Kleinschmidt. We kind of opened the show with your question, Janine, inadvertently. Are the Hurricanes predictable? I asked because the power play has dropped a bit, high number of shots on goals. A team is struggling when they shouldn't. They look overwhelmed when they played Colorado and Washington this month. Um, A, she hits the nail on the head.
She does?
And B, I think we kind of opened with, we didn't address all play, but we were certainly open with the power play slump. And I think they are predictable. I think the power play teams have seen the film and go, oh, well, we kind of know how this looks. And until they change that up, until something, something different happens, I think the power play is very predictable. That's why I say I would start moving bodies around,
Yeah.
or even moving it to try an overload power play. Try a let's maybe switch up the power play entirely. I would love to see them hire a power play specialist for a coach next year. I mean, money well spent, if you ask me, because that 22 whatever percent power play is fictitious because we are running a little over 3% of the power play in the last uh,
Yeah.
25 power plays. That's atrocious. So
No,
I
it's not
I I
good.
I do think that other teams have caught up, Gene, and I think we have become kind of predictable. The other part of it, and it's just hard to say until the playoffs start, is are they just saving it up for when it quote unquote really counts? Because if they honestly believe they can make a deep run, then they're not as worried about who the playoff, first round matchup is like we are. Like we want to win the Metro, right? We'd rather play Boston than the Capitals,
Uh-huh.
or even maybe the Penguins. But if you're on that team and you know that you're the better team, a lot like 2002, 2006,
Yep.
if that's the feeling you have, you're like, yeah, we're going to take our foot off the gas a little bit. We're not going to show them our best. And once we get the playoffs, then we'll take it to them. But that's how I feel. And then just to tie this into another one, also from Jean, she talks about, if you buy into the idea of peaking at the right time, how does that impact the team's last 6 weeks as we head to the playoffs? Can they get their mojo back? Um, I think that peaking at the right time is a big deal. I think that what you what you do affects what comes forward, particularly in the regular season. I think the playoffs is a different animal. In the 2006 run, if I recall, we went into that not, we weren't the favorites. We went into that, I think, limping a little bit,
Yep.
and then we're able to turn it on. So I think once the playoffs hit, I think it's almost like hitting the reset button on a video game.
Mm.
Whatever's done is done. The game changes. We know that fewer penalties are typically called. We know that the game kind of slows down and gets rougher. So I would prefer to see them playing well leading into the playoffs, but I don't think that the slump they've been having is necessarily indicative, because one of the things to keep in mind is right now we're playing a different team every other night. And when you get to the playoffs, you get 7 chances in a row to win 4 games, which means you get to just be hyper focused on the things you need to do against a team that by the second or third game, really well. And that's where coaching comes into effect. That's where
Yep.
guys like Jordan Stahl will take you up on their back and lead by example. So
Mhm.
I think I think we're fine, but that's where I would go. So you kind of have 2 questions there: are they predictable? And then does this go forward into success in the playoffs?
Okay, so as far as predictable goes, um, I would say yes, but only in so much as everyone knows what we do well. Everyone knows how the Canes play the game, how they go through, they know what they expect when they're coming in. They're getting a hard skating, hard forechecking team that has a lot of offensive potential, great defense, and and this is, I mean, so we are predictable. Everyone knows the style of game that we're playing. They know how we like to get at it, and they actually, as of late, they know how to derail that train that the Hurricanes are and can be. So, yeah, we're predictable in that way. I think as far as the last 6 weeks, whether we have our mojo going in at the right time, can we get it back? You know, to me, and I think, and Brad, you mentioned this, you like to see them going in, uh, on a high note, charging up the way you're going into the playoffs. So like you're really hitting the deck running kind of deal. That's one of the things that you love to see, and it's so hard. This is not something that you can turn off and on like a water tap. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
that whole danger of whether you're able to turn it on going into the playoffs. That the way a team plays and their success, I don't, if it can just be turned off and on at will, like that just doesn't happen. You know what I mean? You want to be
Mhm.
going on a high note. And if you want a perfect example of a team that is really going hard and playing well going into the playoffs, look at our opponent on Tuesday night or Monday night. Is it Tuesday or Monday? It'll be Tuesday night. And that's the New York Rangers. The Rangers played 3 games in a row where they hadn't allowed a goal.
Yeah, that was
Like
nuts.
this is a team that is really playing well. They're they're scoring goals, they're hitting hard, they're shutting down other teams. They are firing on all cylinders and have caught they're on a real heater right now. And that's what you would ideally like to see going in,
I
because
agree. I would
you have
prefer
that
that.
kind of when you have that kind of momentum going in, it doesn't matter who you play. It doesn't matter who you play because you're when you're on a heater like that, it just doesn't matter who's wearing the other jersey. So we're and of course, the biggest thing, and it's the elephant in the room, right? It is Freddie's injury.
Which so the just real quick because we actually have a question about that.
Okay.
Um, for me, it's about confidence, right? Really, what you're talking about with the
Mhm.
Rangers is they're going in confident. We can win it. We can just shut teams out.
Yeah.
In my mind, if the boys are losing, but their confidence, like we know it's just a matter of time until this puck luck comes in, that's fine. That's kind
Yep.
of where I guess I was coming from.
Okay.
If you have a scoring slump or you're slumping and losing games and that confidence erodes, like we've seen with a couple of the Hurricanes early in the year, like Marty Natchez,
Yeah, Marty
that's
gripping
where it
that
becomes a
stick.
problem.
Yeah, when you're
But it,
gripping the stick extra tight, for sure.
yeah, but to listen to RBA, they're like, we lost games, but we were in it, like we were playing well. And if that's the team's attitude, I think that is very different than if you're losing and that confidence gets eroded. So
Yeah, if you get say shut out by a by a backup goaltender, and you dominate the play and get 40, 50 shots in the game, and you're dominating the play physically and all the rest of it, and you lose that game, that's a very different feel than if you get shut out by the same backup goaltender and didn't bother to show up and didn't win puck battles and did you know what I mean? Like if you're not,
exactly,
those are
exactly.
two different things and that you can feel good about. So while we were through this slump, I didn't feel terrible about it. You hate the loss, but it was hard to deny who the better team on the ice was. And the opposition catches lightning in a bottle and is able to shut the door.
100%.
I
Um,
mean, it's just a different feel.
looking at the time way, we're gonna do not lightning round, but but we're probably we got about 4 or 5 questions left that we want to answer. But we're definitely going to run long because the game starts in 15 minutes.
Holy, it comes up
So
on you fast, doesn't it?
it does. So Tyler Loveland, thanks for the question, Tyler. He says, and I think he says, let's say Freddie is back by playoffs. Do you ride Auntie or the quote cardboard cutout of rookie Cam Ward, Kochetkov? And what I think he meant was, let's say Freddie is not back by the playoffs, is what I think he meant. Then do you ride with Ronta or Kochetkov? It has to be Ronta for me. I mean, no matter how good Kochetkov has played, until he can demonstrate that here that he is better than Ronta, I think you have to ride Ronta. The Cam Ward comparisons, you know, it's still early for that, right? I mean, the
It
AHL, the
is.
NHL are different animals. Not that the kid maybe isn't deserving. I know, some of the coaches around the league have been like, oh, he's very similar to, Vasilevsky or Bobrovsky, and what they really mean is like play style, not that he's
Yeah.
going to be that guy
Yeah. Yeah.
necessarily. But
Yeah.
they're talking about play style. So I think you ride Ronta if Freddie's not back, but if the kid can play, then you fill him in as best you can. I mean, tandem goaltending got the Hurricanes the cup. It got them to a Stanley Cup Finals. So it wouldn't be unusual for the Hurricanes, at least.
That's and that just a reminder to everyone, if you weren't on board, during the Stanley Cup playoffs, it was a Swiss goaltender, Martin Gerber, who was the number one goaltender and struggled mightily and was getting beat. And that's when Cam Ward was given the opportunity and he jumped in and did the job. This is a different story. Cam was with the team the whole year. He had plenty of experience facing NHL caliber shooters, players, all the rest of it. Kochetkov doesn't have that. That does not to say that he couldn't do what Cam did and the lightning in a bottle type situation, but it has to be Ronta. He's got experience. He he could do well. And I mean, do we want Freddie back? Of course we want Freddie back. We feel much better with a Vezina candidate, a Vezina trophy candidate as your guy in net. And it's it is Ronta, but let's pump the brakes too also on Kochetkov being the next Cam Ward.
Yeah, he's got to earn. I mean, not that
he can't.
I mean, at the AHL level, like I would say, at worst he'll have one heck of an AHL career. Still's got to pull that off in the bigs, right?
No question.
Good
question.
I'm gonna move on. Bethany, thank you for this question. If you had one trade you could make to win the Stanley Cup, what would it be and why? Ray, I want to have some fun with this.
Okay.
Quickly, because we have 12 minutes till puck drop.
Okay.
I want a rational, honest version and then an irrational.
Oh my.
So my irrational one is Martinook for Ovechkin.
Ooh.
And then I think we win the cup going away.
That's awesome.
I mean, that's a trade that they would make, right? I mean,
yeah, 100%.
I mean, the Hurricanes would be in the news every time he scores a single goal. I mean, it would just be great.
It would be outstanding.
And I don't like the guy, but if I don't like all the players we have now, so what's one more?
There you go.
Rationally, I still think that they should have picked up a defenseman prior to the deadline. I think the defense since the All-Star break and the trade deadline has shown itself to be porous enough that Freddie was keeping us in games, and since Freddie has been a little off, we're not getting quite the same look out of our defense as a whole between the goalies and the defensemen. So I would have still wanted to pick up, there wasn't a great fit for a great stay-at-home defenseman who's mobile. right?
Right.
Ben Sherratt, too slow. Somebody like Chicharron who I know I just butchered his name. Sorry, it's lunchtime. Um, offensive minded. I mean, so I'm not sure what it is. Klingberg maybe, or
Yeah.
Giordano is slow, but you know, but maybe something like that. I don't think that there was. I think the big problem is there were people that were serviceable that could fit, but not exactly what we needed. Because I think what we really want is a mobile shutdown D man akin to a Jacob Slavin. I just don't think there was one. So quickly, Ray,
Yeah.
what's I mean, if you just got to basically pick up a player for weight, what are you
if
trading for a bag of bucks, man?
if I okay, so just for it, if we could convince Colorado to trade McKinnon to
Or what
us,
about McCarr? That solves both. That
there it
solves your
is. You know
defensive
what?
problems.
That's why you're the brains of the operation. So we'll deal. We'll give them. Who would we give them?
Yeah, sorry,
Let's
Marty,
give
but
them Smith. Let's give them
Smith,
Smith.
yeah,
We'll give them
Smith
Smith
for McCarr.
for
That's a good
straight
deal.
up. Straight
Straight
up.
up.
Everyone wins.
Yeah,
Everyone wins.
everyone wins.
Okay. All the Hurricanes
I,
win
I mean,
anyway, that's for sure.
I
Could
mean,
you imagine McCarr with this team?
oh, it'd be sick.
Well,
Our power play would really be 22%.
it would be. It
And
would
not
be
22% on
absolutely.
paper.
Yeah, no kidding. The if we're talking rational trades, I looked at Giordano, and I know that he's older, and I know that he may not be as quick, but the leadership skill that he has, he is he would be a Rod Brindamore guy, you know? Like he
Mhm.
would be. And here's a trade that I actually would think of, and I know it would just it sounds unreasonable, but the Islanders weren't going anywhere. If you wanted someone there, Zdeno Chara. You know, Brad, Brad, you know that Rod loves Zdeno Chara
As much as I love to
and
hate
respects
Chara,
him.
I wouldn't hate that trade.
That if we found a way to swing a deal to take him off their hands, he's near their final years. And you want to talk about lockdown defenseman, that's who he was. And he's huge and he's got a great hard shot. He can make
He's slow to step, but
contributions.
he'll still put you on your butt
That
and take
stick
a
is
wicked slapper. I
his
mean,
stick is 8 feet long. Like the poke checks and stuff. How does anyone get anything by him, right? You just reach out, yoink. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like you to
He
deflect
stands
the
on the
puck.
face-off dot and he covers that whole side of the ice. No problem.
Exactly. Exactly. So like that would have been a really good one.
That that
And
that's a
he's
good one.
right at the end of his career, and one more reasonable run at the cup. And he would play well for Rod. Rod respects the hell out of him. He would have looked great. So there
That
you go.
that's a good one. In my mind, this is almost a softball question. This is our friend Nathan again. It's Timber Guy 871 on Twitter. I looked it up. Should the black uni be the default home jersey?
Ooh,
I I I think so. There's a lot of teams now in red, and I say now like it's not new, but you got Chicago's in red, the Devils are in red, the Detroit's in red, the Flames are in red, the Hurricanes are in red,
yeah,
the Florida sometimes is in red. Um, I think going, I think everybody from the fan side mostly likes the black alt as kind of the primary jersey.
I do.
I like our original red jerseys more so than I like anything since then as far as the Reds go. But if it's my decision, I would love to see the blacks as the primary home jerseys.
I love the blacks color scheme, like the color scheme that they had. I like it even more now when that the flag represents what a hurricane is, as opposed to the tropical storm flag,
Yeah, the old storm warning shoulder
the old
crest,
storm
like on
warning shoulder
my
crest.
Jocelyn
Yes,
jersey.
That's well, and that's my Matt Cullen jersey. It's the
Oh,
black.
love Matt.
It's the black with the storm warning,
Yep, the
and
single.
so the
Yep.
single one, and I just like it better when it's actually an actual hurricane flag. So the black one and we always play well in black, right?
Yeah. And
I mean that's the way it's been, right? It's funny, being superstitious. There's something to it. I don't even know how to describe it. There's some things that I'm very superstitious about, do only a certain way because it's the way, and we play well in those black jerseys. So
fun side note, even our logo, when I had it designed, it originally came back with one flag. And I said, no, no.
yeah,
And to you as a designer, it may not look as good, but there needs to be both flags on that logo. And they
yeah,
were like, absolutely no problem, and knocked it. You know, I'll have to look it up. It's a designer I found on like Fiverr. Where you
oh
can
yeah,
get things done relatively cheaply. I thought they did a tremendous job on our logo. I'll have
I
to
love
give
our
them a shout
logo.
out sometime. Um,
It's great.
I saved maybe not the best for last, but I saved Dwayne and NC, friend of the show. Um, he's going to be on next Saturday with us. We're going to simulcast the show. I'm kind of letting the cat out of the bag.
We're going to sports
Dwayne,
school.
we're going to sports school. He has a show called Sports School on Facebook. It's a live show. So you'll be able to, maybe we can work it out to where we can, through him, take some of our fans live. Maybe we'll have to talk to him
Oh
about that.
man, yes.
He had a tremendous question, and I don't know if I have an answer yet. I've been thinking about this for days, and I'm
Oh,
surprising you with it. So I'll go first to give you at least a little time.
okay.
If you could add one player from the 2006 Stanley Cup Canes to this team for the playoff run, who would that one player be and why?
Oh
And
man.
I was like,
Oh man.
so the only limit I'm gonna self-impose a limit on us and say we can't choose Rod because Rod's coaching.
He's
because
already with the
because
team.
right, he's already on the team. You can't choose Rod, and that would be my first choice, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, I mean,
This is so hard.
it right?
It's almost unfair because there's are we he said only you could add one player.
One player off of the 2006 roster.
Listen,
Um,
Coach Dwayne is so great. Coach, dude, I'm picking two, okay? I'm picking two because it's just unfair to
because it's
pick
our
one.
show.
And you can put me and it's our show, and you could put me in detention because he does have detention. So, coach, if you have to put me in detention, this is a detention that I'm willing to take. No trouble because I need two,
All
but
right, who you
I'll
got,
let
Ray?
you go.
Oh, okay. If
Oh,
it's me, um, my first choice I think is Mike Commodore, big shutdown defenseman. The Hurricanes need a big shutdown defenseman. If I'm
mhm,
picking one guy, that he is not the best player from that team, but I think he fits the need the best. I mean, that's a team with, you know, Cam Ward, Eric Stahl,
I
Eric
know.
Cole, Rod
Justin
Brindamore,
Williams,
my boy Kevin Adams, Justin Williams, Glenn Wesley. There's a
Ray Whitney.
lot of people on that team that you could pick that would make this team better. But if I'm picking one that fills a need and I just know would fit into the locker room and just be that guy again, I think I would have to probably go with Mike Commodore.
And you love the robe, right?
You got to love the robe and the wig and the whole,
The
yeah.
robe and the wig and everything. Um, that's a great pick. That's a great pick, and it shows you working in the what does this team need right now? And he might not be the best player, but it's the one that fits our need the greatest. See, I just couldn't do that. I didn't have the wherewithal to think that way. Okay, coach, I'm in trouble, but I'm doing it anyway, and I love you. I'll be your favorite worst student. Um, I am, first of all, for right now, what we need, Cam Ward. Cam Ward from 2006 who is one of only 3 goaltenders all time to win a Stanley Cup and the Conn Smythe Trophy as a rookie. Only 3 goaltenders have done it, and he's one of them. And his ability in net, when he came in that New Jersey series and just took off from there, he was steady. If he allowed a bad goal, there weren't many bad goals that he allowed, but when he did, it wasn't like going off a cliff. He could give up that one bad goal and then be solid for the rest of the game, making these huge saves. And that is the type of consistency that we need, especially now since Freddie might be out. So that's my logical for the team need right now. We would have to have a Cam Ward. If I'm picking from my heart and who I'd want from that team, it would be the before the cross check to the back and the injured Eric Cole. Eric Cole was a house of fire on the ice. He was so quick, dangerous from the wings. And it would be, and I'd take him and put him where Natchez is, and there you go.
If we had a second pick, he would have also been my second pick.
There's your second line right there. If I could, I would put Cole with Trocheck and Jarvis. That would be phenomenal for my lines that we talked about earlier, that my selection of lines. And Natchez, I would be in the press box for injuries, whatever. He'd be in the press box. I'm sorry, Natchez. I'm sorry. This is Eric freaking Cole.
Same here for me. That's Eric Cole that year with Trocheck and, in my case, Svechnikov.
Oh,
if you're the opposition, you're like I don't want to play against those three, right?
What side does the danger come from? Because Svechnikov does exactly as Cole. He's got that outside move, and he gets a step, and he's like a power forward. He goes to the net, and that's what Eric Cole did. And I loved Eric Cole.
Absolutely,
perhaps like behind only Ron Francis in my eyes. It was Eric Cole, and to have him in there on the wing, providing that offense and go to the front of the net. Again, I'm gonna harken back to standing in front of Gilmore. He goes to the front of the net, scores that goal, and turns, and Gilmore's wanting to give him cross checks and stuff, and he's just standing there.
That still makes me laugh.
I'm here. I scored this goal, and you couldn't do a damn thing about it. Pardon the language. That I loved him.
Also in Montreal, he scores the goal. He skates right over to the glass, and the fans, big double fist bump to the fans, like, how you like me now?
How you like? It was glorious. Everything about him. That cross check that he took from Brooks or Prick. Did I say his name wrong? No, I didn't. I said it right. It sounded
right in my headphones.
It sounded right in mine too. I've never forgiven him for what he did. I will never forgive him for what he did, and it shortened Eric Cole's career. Great deal. Great deal.
I'm with you. I would have considered Cam Ward. Cam Ward is, by the numbers, was not as good as Ronta or Anderson this year. If we're just looking at numbers, 3.68 goals against for the season, 14-8-2, which, I mean, he's a rookie, right? I think it's funny we both thought about Eric Cole. I looked at filling a need. You also were looking at filling a need. But my favorite player of all time is Kevin Adams, was on that team. Like, sorry, I couldn't pick Kevin. It's not what he needs. But if you go down the list, right, of people you could honestly say I would put on this team this year, Brind'Amour, Cole, Commodore. You could throw Brett Hedican in there on defense, maybe.
Yes.
Right? You could go for Eric Stahl.
We
Corey
didn't even
Stillman,
consider him.
Corey Stillman,
Corey
Joe
Stillman,
Vasicek, who we talked
Ray
about earlier,
Whitney.
like Doug Waite, Ray Whitney, Justin Williams. We at least mentioned there. Some of these guys are legends because we're Caniacs and they're Canes. But there are 8 or 9 guys on the team when you can go, oh yeah, that's an upgrade. And we have a really good team, but you can go, that's an upgrade, even with as good as the boys are playing. So
yeah.
The puck's about to drop in New Jersey. We should wrap up because I want to see this game.
I do too.
Thanks to everybody who listens. I don't feel like we say it enough, even though I think we do say it a fair bit. I hope we do.
Yeah.
Ray and I do this for fun. There's no commercials. There's no advertisements in our podcast at all. We're not making a nickel off of this.
Nope.
In fact, we're down. Well, I'm down about $75.
Dude, you need to let me know those things so I can chip in. You can't be footing the bill.
No, sir. It's part of my entertainment budget. This is what
there we go.
This is how I want to spend my time talking about the team I love with a good friend, and to people who are listening. Our listenership is almost doubled in the last 60 days. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you for all the questions. These questions were not easy. You may not necessarily agree with our answers, but hopefully you can at least see where we're coming from, and that we're not just we're not just pulling things out of a hat. We really do appreciate the folks who are listening, because if we had one listener and it was just me and Ray and one listener, I think we would still do
100%.
I would. But the fact that we have people who interact and actually, enjoy listening to us, it really does help Ray and I connect with the team and the fan base, given how far away we are from Raleigh, North Carolina. So we really appreciate you guys. Never hesitate to reach out to us if you have questions, if there's something that we can talk about. I threw on Twitter that we're going to try and do some roundtable kind of discussions this offseason. One of them will definitely be focused on people who are new to hockey. So if you're a newer fan and you'd like to take part in that, to either ask questions or give your 2 cents or whatever, please do that. We're definitely going to talk about women in hockey. And how hockey really should be for everyone. I really want to do one about that. We're going to do one about Rob Brindamore, Hall of Famer. I think we have some really great ideas for some topics this summer that we're going to need. We're going to need some folks for that. So we just really want to say thank you for taking the time to ask questions and for listening to our answers. That being said, I don't think puck dropped yet. I have ESPN on, but sometimes it's a laggy, so I'm crossing my fingers.
There's really not much more there to be said aside from the thank yous that we've given, and a reminder, keep those questions coming. Thank you for connecting with us. We love connecting with you, and I hope that we did Chuck K proud with our homage to
Absolutely
Corner today.
I will post a link to his call of the Stanley Cup Finals game, because it literally gives me goosebumps still. Chuck K, one of many, Hurricanes fixtures for a long time. Chuck K, you will always be remembered by this fan base.
Lovely. There really isn't much more to say other than, I don't know.
Go Canes!
Go Canes!
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We will do our best to answer anything hockey related. You can reach us via email at stormcellar97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormcellar97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97.